Welcome everybody. We're going to let this take a few moments as folks are joining us. We're glad to have you here. On behalf of Heritage Radio Network, thank you so much for joining. To start things off, we have a chat option here. Why don't we all say hello and let us know where you're joining from? I'm in Connecticut, so hi everybody, good evening. Thanks for joining us in our virtual event. I'll share a little bit about Heritage Radio Network as folks are coming on. We are a nonprofit 501c3 organization, and we are generously supported by our listeners and our partners. We want to say thank you to all of you for being part of it. We are a network of about 40 podcasts about all things food, drink, and agriculture, including the podcast Eat Your Words, which Cathy Erway has been hosting with us for 10 years. We're really excited tonight for Cathy to share some recipes and insights from her new book, Sheet Pan Chicken, 50 Simple and Satisfying Ways to Cook Dinner. Cathy will be joining us here in just a moment. We want to say a big thank you tonight to our sponsor, Springer Mountain Farms Chicken. Springer Mountain Farms also recently worked with HRN to present a new podcast series called Behind the Label with American Humane, which we'll learn more about later this hour. And we have some other great partners we'd like to thank too. We'd like to thank Books Are Magic and Burlap and Barrel. If you haven't already gotten your book and your spices, they are on their way. I have mine. I'm so excited to have it here. We also have a wonderful location partner, Essex Market. They helped shoot the beautiful videos that you're about to see tonight. And big thanks to Cathy's publisher as well, 10 Speed Press. HRN's all about good food and drink. I hope you're all enjoying a tasty beverage with us tonight. Cheers. Cathy and our special guests are going to talk a lot tonight about sourcing ingredients. So as we kick things off, we're going to quickly do a little shopping. And while our video plays, won't you all please join and chime in the chat with what is your favorite part of the chicken to eat? I'm going to put mine in now.
I like the way you do. Whoa, the way you took it so slow. No, I ain't never had no loving like this before.
Welcome, Cathy. I'm going to pass the baton to you. Thank you so much. We're excited to be here.
Thank you so much for the wonderful Katie. And thank you so much for joining us, everybody, tonight. I love that everyone's, finally, somebody likes legs. Lael. Don't be ashamed of liking the chicken breast. There's plenty of recipes for that. I personally, it's really hard to choose a favorite part because it's like choosing between children, it's your favorite things in the world. It's really hard to choose. They all have their place. But I just wanted to thank everybody first for showing up, and thank you to our sponsors. And I hope some of you got your hands on the book already from Books Are Magic. It's a wonderful local bookstore here in Brooklyn. So you will receive it with your ticket price, and it'll also go to supporting a local bookstore, which is nice. So for those of you who don't have it yet, then this is hopefully a nice sneak peek into the book's contents. I am just really so thrilled that this event came together the way it did, with the participants that we're going to meet along the way as I demonstrate some of the recipes. Because when I was working on this cookbook, it really occurred to me how much cooking or roasting a chicken, I should say, really comes down to the herbs and spices that you use and the chicken that you use. And, like so many people, I had dusty jars of spices, like not all of them were great. And I found over the years that if you have a few staples though, like cumin and coriander, some type of chili powder, and you go through those really frequently, you can make so many different spice blends from that. Like if you add, for instance, a little bit of oregano to that and some garlic, you have like the perfect seasoning for chicken that you might want to grill for like tacos. If you add some turmeric and maybe some warm spices like cinnamon or cardamom, you could end up with something more like a garam masala. or maybe a Ras Al Hanout. And so that's why in the beginning of this book, I have like this little spice chart of like how to make some blends. So that's a sneak peek to the book. But, when I found out about, the other thing about spices is that, really fresh spices are the best. So you want to have like really good quality spices. When I found out about burlap and barrel spices, which is a single origin, fair trade brand that really cares about its sourcing and really has a relationship with each like spice grower, which we'll talk about much later on with its founder. It was like a revelation because it was like, wow, now this is cumin, and like, this is paprika, which by the way, you guys are going to get a version of. You're going to get the pimenton, I believe. So that was really exciting. And so, once you have great spices, that's half of the battle. The other half is, of course, chicken. And we'll talk to the director of the farm operations at American Humane Certified, which is one of the toughest labels, I think, around when it comes to animal welfare. And so we're really, really excited to be working with Springer Mountain Farms chicken for, in this video, you'll see that's the chicken that I'm using. And it proudly carries the American Humane Certified label. So basically with, everyone says like, it comes down to like, all the chefs are like, it comes down to the vegetables, the seasonal vegetables used. And it's like, yes, the vegetables are like really important. So I hope that with this book, you get the hang of the fact that if you have good chicken, good spices, and some good vegetables, whichever ones come your way, like maybe from the seasons, maybe from your CSA or the farmer's market, any and every sheet pan chicken recipe you're going to make is pretty much going to be a slam dunk. And you can mix and match and have a lot of fun with it. And here are just some of the ways. So I'm really excited to show you guys some of the ways that I came up with sheet pan chicken for this book. To kick it off, we're going to be joined by the founder of Burlap and Barrel Spices, which is Ethan Frisch, who is also the co-host of Why Food, along with his co-host Valerie Lomas at Heritage Radio Network. Hi, Ethan.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. I'm in Brooklyn, and there's a lot of sirens where I live right now.
Sounds exciting.
I don't know what's going on. It's been an eventful year, that's for sure. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm usually in Queens, but I get to be in LA for a few weeks visiting my in-laws. So it's like having another month of summer. I can't complain.
That's good. That's cool.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, so for this recipe that I want to show first, it's actually on page, if you guys have the book, it's on page 66. It's the pimenton chicken with shishito peppers and patatas bravas. Oops, that's like some random bookmark. We're going to start the video. Basically, this was my idea of doing like tapas platter at home. And it's basically, you got some potatoes, some red potatoes, and we're going to make like a crispy roast, not fried, like patatas bravas, the Spanish tapa, with a beautiful drizzle of some like olive oily, reddish sauce of some sort, which we're going to make in this version of the recipe, which I didn't sell very well, but you'll see. Anyway, so we're going to roast them until they're crispy alongside some chicken, which is rubbed with the paprika, or I'm sorry, I should say pimenton, which is the spice that you guys are going to get at home. So tell us more about this smoked pimenton paprika from Extremadura, España, that you went out and found.
So paprika or pimenton, you can use either one. Pimenton is the Spanish word for paprika, and paprika is just any dried, ground up pepper. So you can have sweet paprika, you can have smoked paprika, you can have paprika from different countries made with different kinds of peppers. There's essentially an infinite number of different styles of paprika. But the pimenton in particular.
And chorizo too. Yeah. Right?
And the chorizo,
it's the main ingredient, this chorizo, that's why it's so red.
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing about the Spanish pimenton paprika is it's the first place in Europe that peppers, capsicum peppers, were cultivated. Peppers are native to the New World, native to from southern Mexico to northern South America, that stretch of mostly Central America. And so prior to the beginning of trade back and forth across the Atlantic, or mostly in one direction, anyway, there was no pepper anywhere outside of the Americas. And the story that they tell in Extremadura, which is in western Spain near the border with Portugal, the story that they tell is that Christopher Columbus himself, or more likely somebody on one of his boats, carried the first seeds from the Caribbean back to Spain and introduced them into the monasteries in Spain, into 3 different monastic orders. Each monastic order cultivated what is now a different style of pepper. And so what's in this paprika, smoked pimenton paprika, is one of those pepper varieties. They look like long, skinny fingers. It's called a jaranda pepper, which get picked and then smoked for 2 weeks. And they just soak up all of the smoky flavor from the smoking process. And
that's because they were drying out the peppers with like some fire in the house, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Or in the barn.
Yeah, traditionally or historically, I think it would have been done. They would have made what they call ristras, which are long chains of peppers tied together on a string, and hung them in the rafters of a house, and the cooking fire would naturally dry them and smoke them. Now it's a much more intentional process with these big, they look like barns with an attic upstairs, but the floor is just open slats. The peppers get dumped in the attic, and a small smoky fire gets built on the ground floor underneath them. And it takes 2 weeks. So every few days, somebody will climb up into the attic with a snow shovel and toss all the peppers around so they get evenly smoked. But it's a very slow process.
Amazing. Well, so to kind of like utilize that pimenton flavor and just kind of the essence of like Spanish, eating and bar hopping is like a huge part of like their eating culture, and tapas are obviously like the small bites that you want to eat with copious amounts of alcohol or whatever. It's just a part of the culture. I decided to throw together some chicken along with patatas bravas. And at the beginning of roasting, so for the first half of like this very high heat roasting, 450 degree process, we got some red onions and some cherry tomatoes that are just split open. And now they're like, some of them are blackened and blistered at this point. And we're just going to take them off the pan to make room for some shishito peppers that were just tossed in a little bit of olive oil and salt. And they're going to take up residence until they get nice and a little bit blackened in spots. And meanwhile, to make it, and some chorizo, because why not? Because it's delicious. Some just chopped up, hard, dry cured chorizo. Just, you don't want to have it at the beginning of cooking because then that would kind of burn. So just long enough to get really sizzle. And meanwhile, to make a little sauce. And you don't have to make a sauce. You could just eat these beautiful tomatoes and onions on the side. But if you have a blender and a little bit of sherry vinegar or red wine vinegar and olive oil. Okay, and that was like the splatter shot that we shot at Essex Market. It got the whole camera really messy. It was really fun. So that's my sort of patatas bravas sauce that we decided to throw it on. So how did you end up with the spice, that you did in Extremadura, Spain? And how does this differ actually from like smoked paprika? Because I hear a lot of people say like, oh, smoked paprika is like the next coolest thing. And I was like, wait, is it the same thing as pimenton, or what are they talking about?
Yeah, it's a great question. The term smoked paprika is not regulated at all. So you could call pretty much anything smoked paprika. And usually what it is another kind of dried up pepper, primarily from Peru. Peru is a huge producer of commodity paprika for whatever reason. And so it'll be ground up pepper that has smoke flavor added to it, rather than the peppers themselves being smoked, which is what they do in Spain. And the pimenton is one of very few DOP protected spices, so designation of protected origin, the same way that champagne has to come from Champagne. Pimenton has to come from Extremadura, and particularly Pimenton de la Vera, it's called. That's the designation. So it's it has to be grown in that region. It has to be using one of those heirloom pepper varieties that I mentioned, and it has to go through this very particular smoking process in order to be able to be called pimenton.
And let me get this straight. This was mastered by the monks in the monasteries?
That's the story. I haven't done any first-person research, but at the Pimenton Museum in Extremadura, which I went to last year when I was there visiting our partner farmers, they have a big picture of Christopher Columbus, and they blame it all on him. The research that I've done since then actually seems to indicate that it was a botanist or a scientist who was traveling with him and not him personally. But yeah, there's a whole tradition of plants being cultivated in monasteries in Europe. Who's the guy who bred the peas? I'm blanking on his name. There was a monk who bred peas. Anyway,
I do remember.
Were a center of Gregor Mendel.
Oh, Gregor Mendel. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. So yeah, monasteries at that point were the place, I guess, to breed different plant varieties. And so bringing back these new seeds, Columbus was looking for other spices, black pepper, and we still can blame the confusion, between a red pepper and black peppercorns. Totally different plants, look and taste completely different, but we can blame that confusion on Christopher Columbus and not finding what he thought he was looking for, or finding something other than what he was looking for. He just gave it the same name and called it a day, and here we are.
I love that, paprika is basically chili peppers, but it's finely ground. Whereas other places, chili powder or chili flakes, like we don't think of that as paprika, but
Yeah, it's a funny distinction, but generally paprika refers to something that's not spicy, and peppers, as we all know, can be grown with capsaicin or without capsaicin. A red bell pepper is going to taste very different from a habanero. Most peppers are one of two species. There are three species, but they're all very, it's only one or two species of pepper that produce the many, many thousands, if not more, varieties. And just the incredible journey that capsicum peppers have been on, right? Like think of Thai cooking or Indian cooking, or, so many cuisines that love Korean, Chinese, that love peppers, that have become such an integral part of that cuisine. Those are fairly recent introductions since the 1600s. So
Sichuan cooking.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that this next recipe that we're gonna do. It's for smashed cucumbers, which is kind of like in the Sichuan style that I or like my mom's style, kind of like really freehand, very casual. But at the end, we're gonna use some Urfa Biber or black Urfa chili powder. I don't even know what you call it because it's kind of moist. I can't call it a powder.
Yeah.
The black Urfa chili is like a little bit like.
It's flakes that have been packed with a little bit of salt and oil. We'll talk more about them when we get to that part of the video, but they do have a little more of a softer texture than most other chili flakes because of that oil that's added to them.
I kind of like that because, so in this, oh, sorry, this is the wrong side. But anyway, that was the orange salad is where I added the chili flakes. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys. So anyway, this is like a really, really simple side dish where I added some of the Urfa Biber chili flakes at the end. You can add any kind of chili flakes, but I find that sometimes when I add like the red chili flakes, like the Italian flakes that you would get at your pizza shop, they kind of just taste in your mouth like as a topping, like they just, taste like kind of like a dried leaf, that's just kind of there. I kind of like the Urfa Biber because it kind of blends into the oranges. It kind of gets soaked into them a little bit, and it still looks really pretty as a dusting. Anyway, so basically this side dish is a salad with really, really simple, like 2 ingredients, which is basically oranges and olives. Oranges and olives is a Mediterranean combo that is just beloved throughout. You can find it in Turkey, you can find it in Sicily, you can find it wherever. And I added some mint. It could be parsley, or it could be oregano. It could be, no fresh herbs also. But this is a kind of like go-to side dish when you don't think that you have anything as a cool, refreshing salad, but actually you got orange. Say it's the middle of summer, the middle of winter, and you don't have like good lettuce, you don't have good tomatoes, but you probably have good citrus somewhere. So this is just a blood orange, an orange, and a grapefruit, and just those combinations alone. And you can add a tangerine to it or clementine, something like that. Those combinations alone, it'll just like keep your brain and your tongue happy, and like it looks really pretty too. And so I added some of that Urfa Biber chili flakes because it's so smoky and like dark and kind of earthy. It really pops.
From Spain, the pimentón, but produced in an entirely different way and an entirely different place. Urfa comes from the city of Urfa in Turkey, an ancient city, one of the oldest continuously inhabited places in the world. Peppers were brought there in the 1600s, like I said, and very quickly adopted into the local cuisine. And the pepper from that area that people know the best generally is an Aleppo pepper, kind of a famous variety from that region. Not necessarily grown in or near the city of Aleppo, but traded through that city. So anywhere from a radius of 100 miles or so. It's a medium hot sweet pepper. And what they do to make the Urfa version of that pepper is they take those peppers when they're fresh, they chop them up and they lay them out under sheets in the sun. It's the end of the summer, 110 degrees, really dry, and the peppers cure in the sun. They sweat under the sheets. They oxidize, they turn from red to that very, very deep orange. It looks black, and develop all of those crazy, savory, sweet flavors. They taste like raisins and chocolate and coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that contrast with like something really bright, like a citrus fruit. It just like lends it just like takes it down a notch to like that earthy level. And it just, I don't know, it's just super exciting to have all in one plate.
Yeah.
So, and in our next, I love that we're going on this like pepper trail, because in our next, cooking cooking video and recipe, we're going to do the paprika chicken, which is my sort of nod to the Hungarian like paprikash stews, chicken paprikash. But we're going to pause for a couple questions. If you guys want to ask questions, feel free to chat away.
Yeah, we're very much following the pepper trail, where pepper came from the Americas, went to Spain first, went from Spain through the Mediterranean essentially to Turkey, and then from Turkey made its way back to Hungary, back into Europe from the other side, and brought a lot of other Hungarian traditions. The bathhouses in Hungary came from Turkey, so it's I
love that, certain communities, certain cultures really just embraced it, like Hungary, like, Eastern European stews, the paprikash stews. So yeah, Rachel and Madeline, I sort of addressed this in the beginning of the book, but I would say if you're looking for something that makes your cleanup easier, I would go with parchment paper before foil, just because when it comes to chicken and some other ingredients with like, they might get caramelized because we want to see that nice crust on the bottom. When you're trying to, when you're trying to yank off a chicken that's stuck to foil, you're just going to like either end up with foil bits on your chicken, or just like rip the whole thing, and it'll defeat the purpose of having foil, and like it'll get all over the tray. So I would go with the parchment paper. That said, I'm very minimal, and I usually just don't use parchment paper. That's just a personal preference. You can totally feel free to use parchment paper. I just find that with like a non-stick heavy duty sheet pan, like this thing is like armor. Like you can throw it underneath like a huge truck and it'll probably be fine. Like you can like it's built to withstand a lot of crust, and with this you can use a steel wool on it and it'll come off. So, and yeah, I mean, thermometer, for a thermometer I would just stick it into that thigh part right next to the bone and see how quickly it reaches 150 or 160, because that's when you know it's a good place. Otherwise, I mean, you want the skin to be crisp, so I would not worry. Like I would worry about like making it look and the way that it's appealing to you. Chances are when you get the skin nice and crisp, it's probably done, but to double check, stick that thermometer in. Cool. So meanwhile, I think we can go on to the paprika chicken. And Ethan, do you want to answer that question about how long you should keep your spices?
Yeah, it's a harder answer than it appears because it really depends on when you're starting the clock. If you're buying spices from the supermarket, the sad truth is that they're probably a couple of years old already. The supply chains are really slow and inefficient for lots of reasons that I won't go into now, but it can take years for spices to go from the farm to the supermarket shelf, and then we all are guilty of holding on to spices longer than we should have. So they don't improve once they're in your kitchen cabinet. And I think that's the theme across the board. Spices are not getting better with age. So buy them from companies that specialize and can tell you ideally when they were harvested, and use them quickly. Go through them, restock. That's going to be your safest bet. Generally, my rule of thumb is try to use them within 6 or 12 months from when you buy them.
That's why I love to have like my staples, like my cumin and my coriander, and I'm going to use them for everything, whether it's curry powder or like Mexican or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to Doreen, the convection is fine. I don't think it would dry it out. I think that you do want to make sure, like the few times I've used convection ovens, that it gets grease everywhere inside. So that's the only like danger I would look out for. But convection settings are perfectly fine. Yeah. Cool. So I think I can, yeah, Lael. So basically I am, so Lael, how did I come up with the idea for the book? I've been a contributor for Taste. So it's a food magazine, and I wrote about chicken. And I've just kind of, the editors at Taste knew that I was like a bit of a junkie about chicken and like waxing poetic about chicken and stuff like that. So when they decided to do a book series, they first did a book about lasagna that came out last year by Anna Hezful, and they decided to do another cookbook with like really tight, focus. And that's something I just geek out about. I just love that. So they approached me about this idea for a chicken cookbook, and then we decided to do a sheet pan chicken cookbook because that ties together like a really like homey tradition that is like it's very practical. It makes a lot of sense right now for a lot of cooks, and a lot of cooks like revisiting and retooling some of their favorite dishes to work in a sheet pan setting. And that's exactly what I did with this one. And a lot of I asked like 8 contributors to do if they would like to share a recipe that they ended up doing, a recipe that also kind of retooled some of their favorite, dishes from their heritage in a sheet pan. And that's what I tried to do with each recipe basically. And it was just like a lot of fun. So that's how we came up with it. Speaking of, favorite recipes. So the next recipe I was going to do is based on chicken paprikash, which is like a Hungarian or Eastern European in general dish. It's similar to goulash. It's like a really thick, creamy, usually sour cream thickened, stew with chicken. And I just have to say, growing up, my next door neighbors were a very elderly couple from a Polish American couple, the Kieslowskis, and they would cook something every night, and I would wander into their backyard, and I would smell the smell like every single night at like the same time, like 7 p.m. Like it was just like if I was outside in my backyard, I was just smelling this wonderful smell, and I was like, "What is that?" And they're like, "Oh, we're making some paprikash." I was like, "What?" So as I grew up, I started to make I found recipes here and there, and it's just it's like still one of my favorite things ever in the world, chicken paprikash. This stew that is like infused with chicken and paprika. It just takes me back. It's so nostalgic and so perfect together. So actually when we were filming this recipe video shoot at Essex Market, all the cooks were so distracted by the smells from the oven. They're like, "Oh my God, that smells so good." I'm like, yeah, it's chicken and paprika. It's like this magical combination that smells amazing, and that you can't even describe it to anyone until you've smelled it yourself. So I hope you smell it soon. Okay, shall we start the? Okay, so paprika chicken is on page 23. So obviously you can't do a stew completely faithfully, and nor should you, because like why? So the point of doing this in a sheet pan was to get the skin crispy, because some people have a problem with like flaccid, chicken skin. Even like some people like to pull off the skin when they make a stew. So like I've heard that instruction a lot in cooking and like recipes where it's like, okay, pull off the skin before you make the stew, because it's just like nobody likes that at the end. But so the plus here is that we have the onions and some Cubanelle peppers. We're going to sliver that up, and they're going to get nice and juicy in all the chicken juices and paprika-y chicken juices, I should say, on the same pan. But we're also going to have a starch. In this case, I just thought it'd be nice to have sweet potatoes as a contrast. It could be normal potatoes. You could also skip it if you want to have like rice on the side or noodles, or maybe just some bread to sop everything up on the pan. But I like to have some, lots of slivered onions and Cubanelle peppers. Give them a toss with some olive oil. And now this is totally optional. But basically any recipe in this cookbook I found could use a crispy kale crown. So a crispy kale crown is basically where you take some kale and you massage it with some oil and vinegar. Sorry, no vinegar. You massage it with some oil and salt, and you scatter it on top of everything on the sheet pan once it's basically cooked already. So it's done. It's gotten some golden brown crisp on the top, but you drape it with these kale pieces, oil massage kale pieces for like the last 10 minutes or so. And then along with your dish, you have like kale chips as a side, or as I call it, a crispy kale crown. So here we're going to just dredge all the ingredients with some paprika and pepper. And salt and olive oil. You can also add pepper. And I know you guys are going to get some Ocel pepper. What is the type of pepper you're going to get, Ethan?
It's called Isar black pepper, which is the province of Vietnam that it grows in. It's what we call a farmer's blend. So that the farmers who we work with in Vietnam who grow this pepper have decided to grow two heirloom varieties alongside each other. This is a black pepper, right? Just to make the distinction between peppercorns, black peppercorns, and paprika pepper. From Vietnam, really like gingery and spicy.
Oh, it's so exciting. So here's the part where I take it out. It's pretty much done. Just need 10 to 15 minutes. And, you can also just keep your eye on it, because a lot of you, I've made kale chips before, and it's basically the same thing. Like you just you scatter it, arrange it in an even layer on a sheet pan or two. And then you let it go for as long as it kind of needs, because every piece of kale is a little bit different. So here in this case, you want it to get nice and crispy on the edges, a little chip-like. A little bit of browning is perfectly fine. But it's kind of like a bonus with the dish. And so in this particular recipe for paprika chicken, I also have an optional paprika sauce that you can make with to kind of like dial it in with that real kind of reminiscent or nostalgic nod to like the paprikash stew. So it has the sour cream, it has some paprika, it has a little bit of like chicken stock, and you just make it super quick on the side, and then you can use that to drizzle across. But I found with this recipe that it's so juicy on its own that it kind of doesn't need it. And speaking of chicken and its juices and its flavors and everything that goes into how to roast a chicken properly, I found it was like when I was testing recipes, it was really great to use the same brand of chicken over, because chicken like differs wildly when you're testing it out. Some are like juicing all over the place, some are taking longer to cook, some are just a little bit tougher, some are a little more fatty, and that'll happen with any ingredient. And I hope that you guys just kind of go with the flow with it and just learn from experience that things can always be tweaked to your liking. Every single ingredient has a completely different or slightly different, I should say, body mass index, if you will. So they're going to take a slightly different amount of time than any written recipe will tell you sometimes. Yeah, so Rachel, no, just one garlic clove, because that one, to your question about like the garlic clove in that chicken, when you mince or grate a garlic clove, I think they're pretty strong, and I just kind of wanted to marinate the chicken with like a little bit of like, the paprika and the salt and a little bit of garlic and rub it into the olive oil along with the olive oil, because if you have a little bit too much garlic and you're cooking at that high heat, it could burn a little bit. But so this is just kind of like flavor it and marinate it. But you can actually go heavy handed with the garlic. I'm not going to stop you. So we wanted to say, unless anyone has more questions for Ethan, we're going to say bye to Ethan. Thank you for now. Thanks for the paprika. And see you later. And we're going to welcome on Haley Grimes, who is also she is the hi. You are the director of farm operations at American Humane Certified.
That's correct. Thank you guys so much for having me on tonight. I'm very excited to be here.
So I know that Springer Mountain Farms chicken is an American Humane Certified chicken, which means it met some criteria to the extent of the chicken's animal welfare. It got to exercise. The birds had to be in a certain amount of space, and so forth. And what do you think that matters when it comes to tasting the chicken?
Exactly, that's correct. So in addition to their focus on a quality product that you will likely experience firsthand if you're selecting Springer Mountain Farms chicken recipes, they also have a dedication to animal welfare. And that's part of their involvement in our program as well, to highlight what they're doing and their dedication to the animals and their care. So they have a high focus on focusing on what the animals' needs are as they're producing the birds that would eventually, be moved to the grocery stores at some point. So it's a really big commitment for them to be a part of the program. And to understand the program, you really have to understand the foundation of our organization. So many people don't realize that American Humane, even though we are a farm certification program through American Humane Certified, we also have a very long history. It's actually over 143 years old. So we have had a long history in animal welfare, and we actually started out in humane care of livestock over 140 years ago. So we had a bunch of organizations that were dedicated to animal welfare that grouped together and had a concern for animals that were in transportation. And at that time, it was railway transportation. So we started off there, and we just continued to grow. We added on a rescue program when we were called to serve in World War I. We took care of the cavalry horses there, and that started our Red Star Rescue Program, which turned into our rescue program today that deploys to hurricanes and wildfires like the recent California wildfires. And, we just continued to expand from there. We added on a Humane Hollywood program. So, you might have seen that and no animals were harmed in the making of this film. We have a conservation program that certifies zoos and aquariums for animal welfare. We also have a military program where we train dogs, service dogs for veterans that have served and have a PTS or traumatic brain injury. So we train dogs to assist them. And also we do military reunification. So there's dogs that have served that we reunite with their handlers at one point or another, and it's very healing on both ends of the leash. So, and then most importantly, what Springer Mountain's involved in is our farm program. We got into the farm certification space about 20 years ago. So this year marks our 20th anniversary, which is very exciting. And producers like Springer Mountain Farms have been with us from the very beginning. So again, that's a commitment. They came out in the front runners as being part of our program from the very beginning, and have shown that commitment year after year as being part of our program. So in order to be part of our program, they have to undergo audits. These are all third party, and all of our standards are science and evidence-based standards that are helped to be developed by our scientific advisory committee. So these are individuals in the industry that have a long experience and expertise in animal welfare and all different species. So we have people that specialize in beef cattle, and in this case, broilers for Springer Mountain Farms. So it's a wonderful commitment on their part, and it really shows that they care about the raising of their animals.
Doug, the dog, just wanted to say thank you. He's a rescue dog, and that's awesome. So he just wanted to say thank you for all your work at American Humane Certified.
Oh, absolutely.
That's fascinating. I mean, that's clearly why, I mean, I can see why there's this whole, like, podcast series that, yeah, that's so fascinating. All like the many different stages of the work that you guys do and the history of it.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, with regards to chicken, what do you think is like the most important part of, from a culinary point of view? Like, is there, like, what do you think are the culinary considerations to American Humane Certified bird?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So when we go into a barn, when we're evaluating animals on farm, we're really looking at their entire environment. I've heard many times, and I've experienced myself, a bird that's well taken care of and has a focus on animal welfare, in my opinion, you can take the difference. It's just the commitment to the quality of care that they have. Springer Mountain is under our program, which requires a certain amount of space per bird. Obviously, it goes without saying that they have access to food and water, that they receive the treatment that they need when they need it, which is a big point in clarifying that as well. That they're doing daily checks. I think so many people are really impressed, and we touch on this in the podcast. I encourage you to go check it out, the Behind the Label for Heritage Radio Network. But we talk about the dedication that they have even in training. So there's different people throughout the process that are involved in these birds' lives, and they each have specialized training depending on how they interact with them. So it's a huge commitment. Farmers and people from Springer Mountain Farms and everybody that works with them really demonstrates that commitment each day when they're going through all these extra steps to make sure that the animals in their care are provided what they need.
I love it. So I was really excited to work with this chicken because I can taste the difference. I can just see how it cooks. It's like very consistent. It's just really nice to work with a chicken that you feel good about, from a karma perspective, from just like a consistency perspective. So that's why in the videos you'll see us working with that. But I want to go into the next video that we have, which is for another really simple side. And you guys can ask questions for Haley about the label, about anything about chicken in the meantime. But the next side dish that we have is actually the smashed garlicky smashed cucumbers. So my goal here with this book, there's like 10 recipes at the end. They're like chicken sidekicks that are basically something you can make really quickly on the side, or really like easily on the side, that's like super hands off. It's not going to, or like really complementary to a dish, something that you do not want to put on your sheet pan. Because the goal of sheet pan dinners is that like everything in your dinner is on the sheet pan. That's great. And usually you can get away with that, but sometimes you just kind of want a salad, or sometimes you really want like a rice, right, to go with it. So there's a couple of there's a sticky rice, there's a fried rice, there's a quinoa salad, a very simple grain salad. So there's also some sauces in the back, but for this one, basically like a Sichuan or like Chinese style of like smashed cucumber salad that you can go in any direction with. So you can get like Chinese, you can have some oil, you can have some Urfa Bieber chili flakes at the end, or you can have some oil and a little bit of rice vinegar, maybe a touch of chili, like Chinese chili oil, which I also have a recipe for in this book, to take it in a more of like a Sichuan side dish direction. But as you saw right there, basically the whole idea of want to smash the cucumbers so that the seed pockets just naturally like break off and fly away. And then incidentally, at the same time, you'll have like a perfect like bite-sized piece. And that's just that's the whole gist of it. Is what is going to make your cucumber salad too watery. So it's great to get rid of the seed pocket. And you can make a nice little cucumber on the side. But as you'll see, in the, kind of salted them and let them sit on a counter over a bowl for a little bit, and that's all the sheet pan in the oven and roasting. So at the same time, come back to the cucumbers. I'll dress it with just a little bit of oil, so whether it's olive oil and red wine vinegar, and that, or it's sesame oil, maybe a little bit of soy sauce, oil in a few different directions, and it's just like a wonderfully refreshing side dish that literally is 2 ingredients again. So garlic, cucumbers, and this time we're going to use a lot of cloves of garlic. Cool.
Hey, Cathy, just to pause you for a quick second, a few of us have lost your video. So I just wanted to take a moment and see if we can get that running again. Do you want to try just turning your camera off and on? And then in the meantime, we can see if there are any questions for Haley while we get Cathy up and running again.
You heard me, but you didn't see my camera?
Oh, you're back.
You see me? Okay, cool.
Okay. We got a few questions come through in the chat about Springer Mountain Farms and the certification. Haley, are you seeing that chat question?
I am. Yeah, great. So appreciate the questions. To answer Ted's question, it is true Springer Mountain Farms was the first broiler or the chicken producer that we had involved in our program. So again, that's been a very long commitment of them staying dedicated to heightened animal welfare and exhibiting that and all the efforts they put forward to provide the best quality chicken and the best foot forward for animal welfare. I see another one here. Do the AHA standards reduce stress on the birds? Another great question. We have multiple points within our standards. Our standards cover, the birds on the farm and transportation, and multiple points in the process. And there's specific standards in there that are dedicated directly to reducing stress. So it's what the environment is and what the bird needs at that point in their lives. So if it's a transportation step, addressing the light, birds like to have a little bit dimmer lighting. So it might be looking at that to see if that's reducing the stress on the birds, how you walk through the birds each day to check to make sure that they're, the birds are in good health, whether or not they need any additional attention. But great question. We do have multiple areas in our standards that address the stress. And I welcome you. Our standards are transparent. We have them all available online. Please feel free to visit our website at humaneheartland.org, and you can see those standards firsthand. So a great question. I see another question here, if they're available on the West Coast. I think mainly Springer Mountain Farms is focused on the East Coast. I definitely encourage you to visit their website, springermountainfarms.com, and they have a really great Find Us button where you can put in your zip code and look in your area to see what markets carry the Springer Mountain Farm ticket.
Haley, so I know that, animal welfare is like a huge part of your work. I'm just curious about, human welfare, especially in the age of COVID. I'm sure it's on everyone's mind with like huge processing plants and, breakneck speeds that people have to slaughter animals these days, mostly for like, not so much for, for chicken, too. Where is your stance on that? Do you guys oversee anything with regards to human welfare?
From the human side, our standards are focused particularly on animal welfare. There is always an indication, a lot of companies that devote themselves to animal welfare tend to devote themselves to other things like high quality products, focusing on their workers, things like that. But, when you fix a lot of things for animal welfare, sometimes you can also improve the people that are involved in those animals. So looking at what's the appropriate feed line in a slaughter plan or something like that, and looking at the processing of it and what's appropriate for the bird can actually, have an impact on the humans as well. So looking at that too and creating an environment that is low stress, for people involved in animal production. So that's another big key component there. Yeah,
especially as we look to, feedlot operations and like the COVID, which has unfortunately affected so many workers in agriculture in general. It's like something that is, I think that a lot of people are looking to, and it would seem, you would think that like producers who put a lot of care into the welfare of animals it would just be ridiculously, that would just be ridiculous to not put some, thought and care into also the humans. So I would think that goes hand in hand.
Sure.
So the background recipe, great question. That is, who are the chicken breast lovers here? Raise your hand, anyone? So that is a recipe that really, really showcases the chicken breast. It is but it doesn't have to be the breast, but I made it just for the breast. Basically, it is on page 56. It is the best warm chicken salad with pan drippings vinaigrettes. So this is utilizing some skin-on chicken breasts, and you roast it at the same time as some squash. So in here I have some delicata squash that you make some beautiful rings with, but you can really use any squash. If you have a butternut squash or if you have an acorn squash. I've been getting an acorn squash literally every week from my CSA, so I have like 5 of them right now. But anyway, so you can use any kind of winter squash, and you roast at the same time as those chicken breasts. And the beauty, and you can also, like, if you don't have a squash, you could do sweet potatoes, right? Or you could do a cauliflower, right? At the same, like, nice high heat on the same sheet pan as the chicken. But the beauty is that you take the sheet pan afterward while the chicken breasts are resting. Once they're golden brown on the top, you take like your vinegar and your I think it's, just the vinegar and some shallots that you're going to chop up for your dressing, and you just scrape your sheet pan with that, and then collect any of that like browned juices and drippings from the chicken, and you scrape that into your dressing at the same time. So you have like a dressing that has basically a little bit of schmaltz, and that's kind of like the key to every single recipe in this book's like deliciousness, is we're going to use every little bit of that chicken schmaltz and drippings, because it's going to either flavor other things on the pan as it cooks, or you're going to scrape it up and use it in your dressing, like in this recipe. So in this recipe, you also have some radicchio. It doesn't have to be radicchio. It could be arugula. It could be like romaine lettuce or whatever your favorite salad green is. And I have some grapes as well, and some blue cheese. You can come up with your favorite combo, though. Looks like we have about 10 minutes to go. Did anyone have any questions about the recipes that we went through tonight? Because those ones, I feel like we didn't really talk much about the Turkish sweet pepper paprika, which was in the sort of Hungarian paprika chicken recipe. But that one, actually, we talked a little bit about that one. If you guys have any more questions, Ethan is still here. Thoughts on hot paprika? Yeah.
It totally depends on the recipe. Hot paprika is usually sort of a slightly milder chili powder or cayenne. Yeah, I mean, paprika can, like I said at the top, paprika can mean so many different things that it's hard to say. But if you want some heat in any of these recipes, that's a great way to add it.
I'll either reach for like any kind of either like cayenne pepper. Like, by the way, what is the difference between cayenne pepper and paprika? Is that just like a different type of pepper that is dried and finely ground?
Yeah, exactly.
Cayenne pepper. Okay.
Theoretically is the cayenne pepper, which is a particular variety of pepper. I think often what is sold as cayenne is not always from that exact variety of pepper, but theoretically, yeah.
Why don't you have a cayenne pepper in Burlap and Barrel?
That's a great question. I haven't found a cayenne pepper that I love, a dried cayenne pepper that I love, and we've been able to get paprika. That we have the Turkish sweet pepper paprika and the Spanish smoked pimenton, and then we have a whole bunch of different hot peppers, a silk chili from Turkey, which is the Turkish equivalent of the Aleppo. We have a cobanero chili from Guatemala, which supposedly is one of the oldest domesticated chili peppers in the world, going back 5,000 years. It was cultivated by the Maya in Central America 5,000 years ago. Wow. My business. Great question. Thank you for asking that.
Burlap and Barrel.
Burlap and Barrel.
And you should get it in the mail. Oh my God, I can't like use this. Oh my God, I'm so bad at this. Okay, so it's Burlap and Barrel. Has anyone had a chance to cook from the book yet? That's a good question. I know, Katie, you did. You said you made the one on the cover, right? The Ras Al Hanout one. Ras Al Hanout, yes. So this is one where actually speaking to the different textures. This is one where I do encourage folks to grind up spices that are whole that you toast first in a dry pan. So really quickly, like if you have a canister of like cumin seeds and coriander seeds, it's really simple to just take a dry fry pan or even just a small saucepan and toss those in there and just kind of give them a swirl around and smell it while it's heating over high heat. Not too long. Once you smell it, basically take it out of there and put it into a spice grinder. I've used in my time a non-spice grinder, which is like a bowl in the back of a Chinese soup spoon, where I like kind of use as a pretend mortar and pestle, and like I grind it, and then some fly all over the place, but it's okay. But now I have a dedicated, like I use like a coffee grinder that I had extra as my dedicated spice grinder. But you can actually just like, if you have a mortar and pestle, or if you have, once again, like a flat surface like a Chinese soup spoon on the back of like a bowl, like you can just like make a small amount, and the point of doing it for each recipe you do in a small amount, like I wouldn't do that in a huge batch and then put it in a jar, because that just defeats the whole purpose. The point is you want to open the spices to use them right now and to have them super fresh and super flavorful for that dish. So that's why you make a small amount. You can maybe jerry-rig how you grind it, and that's fine. And and it gives you that nice texture. You can make a coarser grind, and I love that because when you roast it, the chicken, it lends to like the crispy skins texture. So you have like a little contrast of all these little bursts of like maybe a coriander seed here and there, or cumin seed. It's just kind of nice. Awesome. So like one of the recipes in here, which we didn't make tonight, is the Chinese 5-spice and Sichuan peppercorn. No, cumin 5-spice chicken wings that I have in here, which is a great blend where you can make Chinese 5-spice, which is 5 spices. Usually I've always just had that in a powder that's like really old, I'm sure, and it's like just been sitting on my shelf. But nowadays, like, I'll just reach to like some nice cinnamon and grab some star anise and then crush it up, because I do have some star anise like seeds. Like it's just one of those things, like if you have a few whole spices, you could kind of make them new again by toasting them. And it just, I don't know, it just seems like it's so much more flavorful than using this old dusty powder. Would you agree, you guys? What do you think? Stephanie, what do you think? What? The best way to clean? Oh no. I've never had a cast iron sheet pan. That's interesting. Great question. So basically I have these like Nordic ware ones. It's just like some generic brand. They're just aluminum, and they should be double thickness aluminum. And that's like kind of a restaurant grade type of sheet pan. And in essence, like a sheet pan is like not fancy. Like we're not talking about like something that is like high-end stuff. We're talking about real workhorse of an industrial kitchen. It's just there for utility. And so I think that, just getting as long as it's, I have a little like how to buy a sheet pan guide in the beginning of here, but as long as it's a double thickness aluminum rolled edge sheet pan, then that's the kind that they use in restaurants. That's the kind that you can go to town with a what's it called, the steel wool scrubber. And that's what I would use. So Stephanie, I would like soak it, and then I would just actually, if you soak it for like, I don't know, even like the darkest, craziest caramel burns, like with a sheet of the steel wool, should like come off just fine. The only thing you don't want to use a sheet steel wool with is when it's like non-stick, because then that'll come off and it'll be yeah, that's just not a good plan. Or you could just always have the parchment paper like someone recommended. So yeah, restaurant supply stores, it's a great idea. Oh no, Target, yeah. I don't know. Believe it or not, I find sheet pans all the time at like street sales and on my like sidewalks in Brooklyn. I kid you not. So like I just like I just collect a bunch of them, and I still have them because they never die. They just last when you get the double walled ones. Whisk has nice ones, that's true. Yeah. I mean, we could Nordic wear. I mean, if you're listening, yeah, you should jump in on this. I also go to the I used to go to the Chinatown Bowery like supply store in New York City. That's where I got a bunch of my sheet pans for this book. Cool. Yeah, does anyone else have sheet pan tips? Hot tips on a sheet pan? I mean, Stephanie, I'm sure your sheet pans are okay. I mean, Target, yeah, you just want to like, even if you go to Williams Sonoma, I found that they have some pretty good ones, so you should be okay. Just some aluminum normal sheet pans. Oh, you're muted, Katie.
Thank you. Cathy, where can folks keep asking you questions? Because we're at the top of the hour and want to be respectful of everybody's time. But can folks reach out to you on social media or via Eat Your Words to keep the questions rolling?
Definitely. I'm pretty active on Twitter. So I'm also on Twitter and Instagram as the same thing, Cathy Erway, no spaces, just my name. And yeah, you can always DM me.
Awesome. Cathy, thank you so much. The book is so beautiful. The recipes are so delicious. It was so cool to see you make them through our virtual event. Thank you, everybody who joined us. We just want to say again, please support our partners. They are so awesome and we love them. And happy cooking to all of you. Don't forget to listen to Eat Your Words. And Cathy, thank you so much again. This has been great.
Thanks everyone for joining tonight. Enjoy the debate tonight if you're watching it next. And Dougie is, oh my God, he's asleep right now, but he wants to say bye. So you guys want to say bye to Doug?
Oh,
bye.
Good night, Dougie.
Bye.
If you all keep this tab open right when we close, you'll be directed right on over to a podcast playlist. So you can keep it rolling if you want to, or just bookmark it for later. And thank you, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Happy cooking.